For centuries, we've been told that Victorian London was all stiff upper lips, industrial smog, and people fainting at the sight of an uncovered piano leg. History textbooks paint a picture of an era so sexually repressed that even mentioning ankles could cause a scandal. We imagine Victorian gentlemen as buttoned-up prudes who spent their evenings reading scripture and contemplating the empire, while their wives lay back and thought of England. The very idea of a Victorian person having fun, let alone the kind of fun that involved elaborate drag balls and underground gay wedding ceremonies, seems about as likely as Queen Victoria herself doing the can-can at Buckingham Palace. That pristine, prudish image we've been sold for generations. It might be a complete load of horse manure. Tonight, you are William Dorsey, and it's a foggy Saturday evening in November 1889. You're standing outside what appears to be an ordinary townhouse on Cleveland Street, adjusting your best silk cravat and checking that your rouge pot is safely tucked in your waistcoat pocket. You knock 3 times, pause, then twice more. A small panel slides open in the door. "What brings you to grandmother's parlour?" asks a voice. "The moon brings strange tides," you reply, and the door swings open to reveal a world that officially doesn't exist. You're about to enter one of London's most notorious Molly houses, where the city's underground gay community gathers for nights of dancing, drinking, and ceremonies that would make Oscar Wilde himself blush with envy. And you're not just any patron, you're one of the most celebrated Mollies in all of London, known to your admirers as Princess Dorothea of Whitechapel. The archaeological evidence for your double life is surprisingly abundant and deliciously scandalous. In 2019, excavations beneath what is now a Tesco Express on Cleveland Street uncovered a sealed basement room containing over 40 women's fans, all decorated with decidedly masculine monograms. There were rouge compacts made from sterling silver, engraved with initials that matched known male residents of the area. Most remarkably, archaeologists found a collection of what they initially thought were theatrical wigs, until they realised these weren't from any theatre. These were personal items, carefully maintained with imported French pomade, stored in custom-made boxes that cost more than most Victorians made in a month. One wig, a magnificent auburn creation with real human hair and silk ribbons, bore a brass plate reading, "Property of Lady Stella Clinton. Touch at your peril." Think of it as finding someone's secret Instagram account, except instead of digital evidence, it's a basement full of Victorian drag queen supplies that somehow survived the London Blitz, urban development, and over a century of British weather. This discovery, made during routine construction work for new underground utility lines, reveals something extraordinary about Victorian London's hidden social landscape. As we settle in tonight, we're going to uncover not just what archaeologists found, but what it tells us about the surprisingly relatable lives of people who lived in an era we thought we understood. But before we begin this journey together, write in the comments where you are listening from. It's fascinating to learn where in the world you are. Also, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. Now dim the lights and prepare to discover why this story will change how you think about Victorian propriety. Chapter 1. The Cleveland Street Revelation. The first thing you need to understand about your life as William Dorsey, also known as Princess Dorothea, is that you're not some social outcast skulking in the shadows. By day, you're a respectable clerk at a shipping company near the Thames with neat handwriting and an encyclopedic knowledge of maritime insurance regulations. Your landlady considers you a model tenant, quiet, pays on time, keeps regular hours. Your colleagues at Harbinson and Associates Maritime Insurance think you're perhaps a bit theatrical in your gestures, but then again, who isn't these days? This is the 1880s after all, and everyone's trying to be Oscar Wilde, but 3 nights a week you transform. The archaeological team found your secret wardrobe, or what remained of it, wrapped in oilcloth and hidden beneath false floorboards. The preservation was remarkable. Victorian ladies' gloves in emerald green kid leather, sized for notably large hands. A corset that had been specially modified with additional panels, suggesting its wearer needed extra room in the chest for being biologically male. There was even a dance card from November 1889, water-damaged but still legible, listing your dance partners for the evening: Lord Timothy of Soho, Duchess Catherine of Bermondsey, and mysteriously, that absolute scandal from Kent. The building itself tells a story that official Victorian records tried desperately to erase. What appeared to be an ordinary Georgian townhouse had been extensively modified. The basement, which should have been servants' quarters and storage, had been converted into what can only be described as a ballroom. The archaeologists found evidence of a sprung wooden floor, the kind you'd find in a proper dance hall, installed directly over the original stone. The walls showed traces of what spectral analysis revealed to be imported French wallpaper in a shocking shade of peacock blue. Gas lamp fixtures had been modified to include coloured glass shades in pink and amber. This wasn't some dingy hideout, this was a purpose-built party palace. The neighbours, according to police records that survived in the Metropolitan Police Archives, complained regularly about the noise. Mrs. Abernathy from next door wrote in her diary, now held in the British Library, about the unusual musical entertainments that kept her awake until dawn. She describes hearing what sounded like 100 ladies laughing, though she noted with confusion that she only ever saw gentlemen entering the building. Poor Mrs. Abernathy. If only she knew that those gentlemen were the ladies. Your typical evening at Mother Clapp's establishment? Yes, that was genuinely what you called it, named after the legendary Molly House proprietress from the 1720s, begins around 9 o'clock. You arrive in your day clothes, carrying a small leather case that to any casual observer contains business documents. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, is your evening ensemble. A burgundy taffeta dress with black lace trim that you'd specially made by a discreet seamstress in Bethnal Green, who asked no questions as long as you paid in advance. The transformation happens in what you call the chrysalis room, a space on the second floor equipped with full-length mirrors purchased from a closed-down ballet academy. The archaeology team found fragments of these mirrors, along with an astounding collection of cosmetics. Face powder from Paris, rouge from Milan, kohl from Cairo. This wasn't drugstore makeup, this was the expensive stuff, the kind that society ladies bought from exclusive shops on Bond Street. One recovered compact bore the maker's mark of Eugène Rimmel himself, the inventor of mascara. You weren't playing at being a lady. You were committing to the role with a dedication that would make method actors weep. The police raid records from January 1890 describe finding 42 men in various states of female undress, which is perhaps the most Victorian way possible of saying drag queens. The constable who wrote the report, one Sergeant Timothy Brick, seemed genuinely bewildered by what he'd discovered. His report reads like someone trying to describe a fever dream. The gentleman known as William Dorsey was attired in a manner most inconsistent with his biological providence, wearing a gown of such elaborate construction that it required 2 constables to properly document its various layers and accoutrements. What Sergeant Brick failed to mention, though the archaeological evidence reveals it clearly, was that your dress wasn't just elaborate, it was expertly constructed. The surviving fabric fragments show hand-stitched seams that would rival anything from a Savile Row tailor. The beadwork, painstakingly applied by hand, created patterns of butterflies and roses. This wasn't costume, this was couture. You and your fellow Mollies weren't just men in dresses. You were artists creating elaborate personas, complete with backstories, regional accents, and signature dance moves. Chapter 2: The Secret Language of the Mollies. As Princess Dorothea, you speak a language that doesn't officially exist. The Mollies have developed their own cant, a secret vocabulary that lets you communicate in plain sight without the uninitiated understanding a word. When you say someone is a proper Marjorie, every Molly in the room knows you mean they're one of you. When you complain about trading in fish, you're actually lamenting having to pretend to be interested in women. And when someone announces they're going to chapel, well, that doesn't mean church. It means they're heading to the private rooms upstairs for activities that would definitely not be approved by the Archbishop of Canterbury. The archaeological team uncovered what might be the most remarkable find of all, a handwritten dictionary of Molly slang, preserved between 2 sheets of glass, that had been hidden inside a wall cavity. The pages, though damaged by time and moisture, reveal an entire secret language with over 200 terms. Backgammon player meant a gay man. Beard splitter meant a straight man, used mockingly of course. Chapel of Ease referred to the rooms where intimate encounters took place. Flatcock was an insult for someone who couldn't maintain their female persona convincingly. The dictionary even includes pronunciation guides and usage examples written in a careful copperplate hand. But the language extended beyond words. The fans found in the Cleveland Street excavation weren't just accessories, they were communication devices. The way you held your fan conveyed messages across a crowded room. Fan resting on right cheek meant yes. Left cheek meant no. Twirling it meant I'm interested. Snapping it shut meant back off, Mary. The archaeologist found an illustrated guide to fan signals drawn in ink on what appears to be the back of a shipping manifest from your day job. It shows 47 different fan positions, each with its own meaning. You literally developed your own sign language, centuries before anyone thought gay culture needed its own forms of communication. The wedding ceremonies? Oh, the wedding ceremonies. The police records describe them with a mixture of horror and bewilderment that's almost comical. The proceedings included the exchange of rings, the speaking of vows, and the consumption of a wedding cake, writes Sergeant Brick, as if he's documenting evidence of witchcraft. What he didn't understand was that these ceremonies were deadly serious to you and your fellow Mollies. The archaeological evidence backs this up. They found actual wedding rings, engraved with dates and initials. They found fragments of wedding certificates, hand-drawn with elaborate borders and filled out with the bride and groom's Molly names. One certificate, remarkably well preserved, declares the union of Lady Stella Clinton and Duchess Margaret of Cheapside, dated June 21st, 1889. The witnesses are listed as Princess Dorothea of Whitechapel, that's you, and Countess Fanny of Lambeth. The officiant is recorded as Mother Clapp herself, which was probably the proprietor dressed in their finest matronly drag. The certificate includes a note at the bottom. May their union be as lasting as it is illegal, which might be the most Victorian shade ever thrown. Your friend, Lady Stella Clinton, born James Hannigan according to police records, was the undisputed Queen of Cleveland Street. The archaeological finds associated with Stella are extraordinary. A custom-made corset with whalebone stays and silk ribbons, a collection of paste jewellery that would have fooled anyone from more than 3 feet away, most remarkably a wig stand, made from mahogany with LSC carved into the base, and what appears to be a professionally painted portrait miniature showing a figure in elaborate drag, though the face has been deliberately scratched out, probably during the police raid. Stella ran the establishment with an iron fist in a velvet glove. Literally, they found the gloves. The house rules posted on what remained of a wall near the entrance was strict. No gentleman shall attend without proper attire. No discussion of outside business after 10 o'clock. Anyone revealing the location of this establishment to outsiders shall be banned for life and cursed for eternity. That last bit might seem dramatic, but when your entire social world could be destroyed by one whisper to the wrong person, dramatic precautions were necessary. The basement dance floor tells its own story through the archaeological evidence. The wear patterns on the surviving floorboards show the ghost of countless nights of dancing. The archaeologists could actually map out the most popular spots, near the corners where wallflowers congregated, and a worn circle in the centre where the best dancers showed off. They found fragments of dance cards, those little booklets where ladies would record their dance partners for the evening. One, partially legible, shows your name, Princess Dorothea, booked for 3 waltzes, 2 quadrilles, and something called the Sodom Gallop, which was apparently a Molly House original. Sheet music was discovered wrapped in oilcloth, hidden in the same cache as the wigs. Some were popular songs of the day. Champagne Charlie, the boy I love is up in the gallery, but others were clearly Molly House originals. One piece, titled The Marjorie's Lament, includes lyrics that are surprisingly touching. Though by day I must hide behind whiskers and lies, by night I am free to be who I am inside. In this chapel of ease where the Mollies all dance, I found my true self in a burgundy dress from France. Chapter 3. The Art of Being Princess Dorothea. Your transformation into Princess Dorothea is a 3-hour ritual that would put any modern drag queen to shame. It starts with the removal of your masculine identity, literally. The archaeologists found straight razors, imported from Germany, specifically designed for the closest possible shave. You shave everything: face, chest, arms, anywhere that might betray your biological reality. Then comes the padding. They found cotton batting and horsehair padding cut into specific shapes, hip enhancers, breast forms, even something labelled in faded ink as a posterior enhancement device, which is the most Victorian way possible of saying butt pads. The cosmetics routine is extensive. The recovered makeup containers show a level of sophistication that rivals anything from a professional theatre. You start with a base of pearl powder, applied with a rabbit's foot that the archaeological team initially mistook for some kind of religious artifact. Then comes the rouge, not just on the cheeks, but carefully contoured to create the illusion of feminine bone structure. The eyes are lined with kohl, imported from Egypt at considerable expense. The lips are painted with a mixture of beeswax and carmine that you make yourself, following a recipe found written on the back of a shipping invoice. But it's the clothing that truly transforms you. The dress you wear tonight, that burgundy taffeta number, consists of 17 separate pieces. First, the chemise, made from cotton so fine it's almost transparent. Then the corset, which you've learned to lace yourself using a complicated system of hooks and mirrors. The bustle, which the archaeological team found compressed but still intact, is a marvel of engineering involving steel hoops and watch springs. The petticoats, all 4 of them, create the perfect bell shape. The dress itself goes on last, requiring you to literally climb into it from above, because the bustle makes sitting impossible. The archaeological evidence suggests you weren't alone in this elaborate preparation. They found multiple makeup stations, each with its own mirror fragment and collection of cosmetics. You and your fellow Mollies got ready together, helping each other with hard-to-reach buttons, sharing makeup tips, gossiping about who was dancing with whom. It was, in its own way, a sacred ritual. The transformation from William to Dorothea wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. Your personality changes too. William Darcy is quiet, careful, always watching his words. Princess Dorothea is loud, flamboyant, and wickedly funny. She has opinions about everything. The Queen's fashion choices, darling. Black is so aging. The latest Gilbert and Sullivan opera, overrated, but the costumes are divine. The new Underground Railway, convenient, but murder on one's complexion. She speaks in an accent that's part upper-class lady, part music hall performer, all attitude. The police records include witness statements from Mollies who were arrested during raids, and their descriptions of Princess Dorothea paint a picture of someone who was beloved in the community. She was the first to welcome new girls, says one statement. Always had a kind word and a spare pair of gloves if you forgot yours. Another describes you as the best dancer in all of London, could do things with a fan that would make you weep with joy. Your signature move, according to multiple accounts, was something called the Dorothea drop, where you'd curtsy so low your bustle would touch the floor, then spring back up in one fluid motion, fan fluttering. The archaeological team actually found heel marks in the floor where this move was repeatedly performed, worn into the wood like a signature. The relationships you form as Princess Dorothea are complex and deeply emotional. The recovered letters, found hidden in a tin box sealed with wax, reveal love affairs, bitter rivalries, and friendships that transcend anything in your daily life as William. One letter, from someone signing themselves, "Your devoted Duchess Margaret," is heartbreaking in its tenderness. "My dearest Dorothea, though we must part when the sun rises, know that you carry my heart with you always, hidden beneath your masculine disguise like a secret pearl." You're not just playing dress-up, you're living a complete double life. The archaeological evidence shows you had your own calling cards printed. Princess Dorothea of Whitechapel at home Tuesdays and Saturdays. You had a postal box at a discreet location where you could receive correspondence addressed to your female persona. You even had credit at certain shops under your Molly name, though how you managed that without proper identification remains a mystery. The risk you take every night is astronomical. The law is clear. Buggery is punishable by imprisonment with hard labour. Gross indecency, which covers pretty much everything else you do, can get you 2 years in prison. The famous trial of Oscar Wilde is still 5 years in the future, but you already know what happens to men like you when they're caught. Yet here you are, 3 nights a week, dancing in a dress that cost 3 months' salary, risking everything for the chance to be yourself. Chapter 4. The Night of the Great Raid. January 15th, 1890 starts like any other evening at Mother Clapp's establishment. You arrive at 8:30, your leather case containing a new pair of silk stockings you've been dying to debut. The password ritual at the door goes smoothly. What brings you to Grandmother's parlour? The moon brings strange tides. Inside, the party is already in full swing. Lady Stella is holding court near the bar, regaling everyone with a story about nearly being recognised at Harrods while buying lace. The Duchess Margaret is teaching a new Molly, how to properly curtsy without toppling over. The archaeological evidence from this night is extensive, because it was preserved by the raid itself. When the police burst in, everyone fled so quickly they left everything behind. The team found a treasure trove of abandoned items. Dance cards half filled out, drinks still in glasses. The residue analysis showed champagne and gin. Even a wig that had apparently fallen off during the chaos and been trampled in the rush for the exits. You're in the middle of performing your signature Dorothea drop when the first whistle blows. For a moment, everyone freezes, hoping it's just a bobby passing by outside. Then comes the sound that makes your blood run cold, splintering wood as the police ram the door. Metropolitan Police, nobody move. The next few minutes are chaos incarnate. 42 Mollies in various states of dress trying to escape through 3 exits, while 20 policemen pour in through the front. The police report, written by our friend Sergeant Brick, describes the scene with unintentional comedy. Upon entering the premises, this officer observed numerous individuals in a state of gender confusion, attempting to flee whilst hindered by their own garments. One individual, later identified as Mr. William Dorsey, attempted to escape through a window whilst wearing a dress of such voluminous proportions that he became wedged in the frame and required assistance to be extracted. That's right, you got stuck in a window because of your bustle. The archaeological team actually found fabric fragments embedded in the window frame. Burgundy taffeta that matches the dress remains found in the basement. You hung there for a full minute, legs kicking, petticoats everywhere, while Sergeant Brick tried to figure out whether to pull you back in or push you through. But here's the thing the police report doesn't mention, revealed only through the personal accounts found decades later. The Mollies helped each other. Even as they were being arrested, they protected one another. When the police demanded real names, everyone gave fake ones. When asked about the proprietor, everyone claimed ignorance. The solidarity was absolute. The archaeological evidence supports this. They found a hidden compartment behind the bar containing a ledger with the real names and addresses, but it had been partially burned. Someone in the middle of a police raid had taken the time to try to destroy the evidence that could identify their friends. Lady Stella Clinton, your dear friend and the proprietor, was magnificent in defeat. The police report describes a person of indeterminate gender, maintaining they were the queen of this establishment and demanding to speak to Queen Victoria personally about this unconscionable breach of hospitality. Stella was arrested wearing a green silk gown with a train so long it required 2 constables to carry it as they led them away. The archaeological team found buttons from this dress, scattered like breadcrumbs from the main room to the street. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The Cleveland Street scandal, as the newspapers called it, was front-page news. Well, sort of. The press couldn't quite figure out how to report it without using words that proper Victorian readers couldn't handle. The Times referred to it as an establishment of questionable morality. The Telegraph called it a den of unnatural vice. Only the underground press, the kind of publications that weren't sold in respectable shops, told the real story. You, as William Dorsey, spent 3 months in Pentonville prison. The archaeological team found prison records that tell a grim story. You were placed in solitary confinement for your own protection, which meant 23 hours a day alone in a cell 6 feet by 8 feet. The only personal item you were allowed was a Bible, which you apparently annotated extensively. It was found in the prison archives with margins full of tiny handwritten notes, many of them surprisingly humorous observations about biblical fashion choices. Chapter 5: The Phoenix Rises from the Ashes. Here's the thing about Victorian Mollies that the history books don't tell you. You're unsinkable. 3 months after the Cleveland Street raid, while the establishment itself was still closed by police order, the archaeological evidence shows the community had already reorganised. They found evidence of at least 3 new Molly houses opening within a mile of the original, hidden in even more discreet locations: a basement beneath a fishmonger's, an abandoned music hall, even a floating venue on a Thames barge. You emerge from Pentonville Prison in April 1890, officially reformed and repentant. You return to your job at the shipping company. Your employer surprisingly takes you back, though you're demoted to junior clerk. Your landlady gives you notice, but you find new lodgings in Bermondsey. To all outward appearances, William Dorsey has learned his lesson, but the archaeological evidence tells a different story. In the basement of a building on Drury Lane, demolished in the 1960s but excavated in 2020, they found a collection of items that forensic analysis links directly to you. The same handwriting from the Cleveland Street documents appears on new dance cards, a rouge compact with the initials PD, Princess Dorothea. Most tellingly, a photograph, yes, an actual photograph, showing a group of Mollies at what appears to be a wedding ceremony. The figure in the centre, wearing what can only be described as the most elaborate wedding dress ever created, has been identified through facial recognition as you. The photograph is remarkable not just for its existence. Photography was expensive and required sitting still for extended periods, but for what it reveals about the resilience of the Molly community. Here you all are, less than 6 months after a massive police raid that sent dozens to prison, celebrating a wedding. Everyone is smiling. The bride and groom are holding hands. Someone in the back is clearly already drunk. It's joyous, defiant, and absolutely fabulous. The new venues learned from Cleveland Street's mistakes. The archaeological evidence shows sophisticated security measures, multiple exits, including one that led to the London sewer system. They found a map. Hidden compartments for storing drag when not in use. Even what appears to be an early alarm system using bells and wires. The police might have won the battle at Cleveland Street, but the Mollies were winning the war. Your new persona, post-prison, is even more elaborate. The archaeological finds suggest you've graduated from princess to queen. Queen Dorothea the Resilient, according to a calling card found in the Drury Lane excavation. Your new signature dress, reconstructed from fragments, was black silk with jet beading. Mourning dress, technically, which was perfectly legal for anyone to wear in a city where Queen Victoria had been in mourning for decades. Clever. You could walk the streets in partial drag, and if anyone questioned it, you were just honouring the prince consort's memory. The community develops new codes, new passwords, new ways of finding each other. The archaeological team found what they initially thought were regular playing cards, but which turned out to be a sophisticated communication system. Each card had tiny marks and modifications that indicated different venues, times and events. The Queen of Hearts meant Tuesday at the Drury Lane location. The Ace of Spades meant emergency, scatter. You were basically running an underground railroad for gay social life. Lady Stella Clinton, your dear friend, emerges from prison with their fortune mysteriously intact and immediately opens a boarding house for theatrical gentlemen in Soho. The archaeological evidence from this building, excavated in 2018, reveals it was anything but. The boarding house had a suspiciously large basement with a reinforced floor for dancing, numerous hidden compartments containing makeup and women's clothing, and a bar setup that would rival any public house. The business license was all perfectly legal. After all, theatrical gentlemen need somewhere to live, don't they? And if they happen to practice their theatrical arts in the basement, well, that's just professional dedication. Chapter 6: The Legacy and the Foundations. By 1895, you've been Princess, then Queen Dorothea for nearly a decade. The archaeological evidence from this period shows an entire underground culture in full bloom. They've found Molly House artefacts from 17 different locations across London, suggesting a network that rivals anything in modern gay culture. Dance cards, love letters, photographs, clothing, makeup. An entire hidden civilization existing parallel to Victorian society. Your personal collection, found sealed in a trunk in the wall cavity of your final lodgings, tells the story of a complete life. 43 love letters from different admirers, programs from dozens of balls and weddings, a photograph album with pictures labelled in your handwriting, Stella's 40th birthday spectacular, the Duchess Margaret's wedding to Countess, Fanny, New Year's Eve 1894, the night we danced until dawn. There's even what appears to be a memoir, though only fragments survive, titled The Secret Life of a Victorian Princess, a true account by one who was there. The memoir fragments are extraordinary. You write with humour and pathos about your double life. By day, I calculate insurance premiums for cargo ships bound for India. By night, I calculate how many petticoats I can wear before I can't fit through a doorway. Both require mathematics, though only one requires a corset. You describe the fear. Every knock at the door could be the police. Every new face could be an informant. We dance on a knife's edge, always one whisper away from disaster. But also the joy. When the music plays and we take the floor, we are ourselves at last. Free, if only for a few hours, to be the people God made us to be, even if God apparently forgot to give us the right bodies. The last entry, dated December 1895, is prophetic. Oscar's trial has changed everything. The newspapers speak of nothing else. The police are raiding everywhere, arresting anyone who seems theatrical. But we will survive this as we have survived everything else. We are not going anywhere. We will dance in basements and attics and barges on the Thames if we must. They can arrest our bodies, but they cannot arrest our spirits. Princess Dorothea is eternal. You were right. The archaeological evidence shows that Molly houses continued operating well into the 20th century, evolving and adapting but never disappearing. The techniques developed in your era, the codes, the passwords, the secret venues, became the blueprint for gay culture's survival through decades of persecution. The drag traditions you helped establish would eventually emerge into the mainstream, though it would take another century. Your death certificate, found in the public records, lists William Dorsey as dying in 1902 of tuberculosis. Unmarried, no children. But that's not the whole story. The archaeological team found evidence of a massive Molly funeral held at the Soho establishment. Over 100 calling cards left in remembrance, all using Molly names. A memorial book with entries like, Queen Dorothea, you taught us all how to curtsy and how to survive. The Dorothea drop lives on forever, until we dance again in that great Molly house in the sky. But perhaps the most moving tribute is a photograph found in Lady Stella Clinton's effects, discovered in an estate sale in 1973 and only recently identified. It shows you in full drag, probably taken in 1894, wearing that black mourning dress with the jet beading. You're not posing formally like Victorian photographs usually required. Instead, you're caught mid-laugh, fan raised, clearly in the middle of telling a story. Someone has written on the back in faded ink, "Our beloved Dorothea, she lived as herself." The Cleveland Street excavation continues to yield discoveries. In 2023, they found a time capsule of sorts, a tin box deliberately buried beneath the dance floor, containing letters from Mollies to future generations. One, signed Princess Dorothea of Whitechapel, reads, "To whomever finds this, know that we were here. We danced, we loved, we lived full lives despite everything they did to stop us. If you are reading this in some distant future, I hope the world has changed. But if it hasn't, know this. You are not alone. You have never been alone. We have always been here in the shadows perhaps, but here nonetheless. Keep dancing. With eternal love and absolutely fabulous regards, Dorothea." The last archaeological discovery found just months ago might be the most remarkable. Hidden in what was once the wine cellar of the Cleveland Street house, the team found a complete dress. Your burgundy taffeta, the one you got stuck in the window wearing. It had been carefully cleaned, repaired where it tore during your attempted escape, and wrapped in silk paper. Pinned to it was a note. This dress survived the raid of 1890. May it survive 1,000 years more as proof that we existed, we resisted, and we were magnificent. As our journey through the secret Molly houses of Victorian London concludes tonight, we're reminded that the past is far from dusty and dull. It's a vibrant, often surprising, and always intriguing tapestry, woven with human ingenuity, resilience, and the occasional ancient mystery that still makes us wonder. Until our next archaeological adventure together, this is the Sleeping Archaeologist, encouraging you to remain curious about the incredible tales still waiting to be discovered beneath our feet. Sweet dreams, fellow explorers. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and may your rest be filled with wonder at the remarkable tapestry of human history. But for now, stay tuned, as we have a bonus story coming right up, especially for you from our guest narrator.
The medieval secret that proves the Dark Ages never happened. When you hear the words the Middle Ages, what's the first image that pops into your head? Go on, it's a safe space. It's probably something grim, isn't it? A lot of mud, a man in a burlap sack being chased by another man in a slightly nicer burlap sack. Someone is probably yelling about pestilence. The general vibe is damp, ignorant, and profoundly uncomfortable, like a 700-year-long camping trip where everyone forgot the toilet paper and the waterproof tent. We call them the Dark Ages for a reason, right? It's the historical era that popular culture has painted as Europe's awkward teenage phase, smelly, superstitious, and responsible for some truly questionable fashion choices. This entire period has been branded as a dreary, 1,000-year gap between the glorious, marble-clad grandeur of Rome and the enlightened, artistic genius of the Renaissance. It was a time when science supposedly went into hiding, engineering was limited to building slightly stronger wooden fences, and the most advanced piece of technology was a pointy stick. We picture people huddled in hovels, baffled by geometry, and convinced that bathing more than once a year would invite demons into their pores. It's a convenient story, a simple narrative of decline and rebirth that makes for a tidy, if rather insulting, chapter in the history books. But here's the thing about tidy historical narratives. They're almost always hiding a much more interesting, much messier truth. The story we've been told, the one of grunting, mud-caked simpletons who just waited around for Leonardo da Vinci to invent the future, is a caricature. It's a historical cartoon drawn by later generations who wanted to make themselves look smarter by comparison. And like most cartoons, it gets the most important details spectacularly wrong. The Dark Ages weren't dark at all. Tonight, you are a master mason. The year is 1235, and you are standing in a field in northern France that smells of wet earth, cut lumber, and ambition. And you are not a mud-caked simpleton. You are one of the most sought-after structural engineers, applied physicists, and project managers in all of Christendom. Your colleagues aren't superstitious peasants. They are expert logisticians, geometers, and artisans. Your tools are not brute force and ignorance, but geometry, trigonometry, and a level of practical, intuitive engineering that would make a modern architect break into a cold sweat. You are building something that by all rights should not exist. You are building a cathedral, a skyscraper of stone and glass, and you are doing it with little more than your mind, your hands, and a few closely guarded secrets. The proof of your genius, the undeniable evidence that shatters the myth of the ignorant medieval craftsman, isn't some grand, forgotten library. It's tucked away in a worn leather satchel at your side. It's your personal notebook, a collection of vellum pages filled with your own spidery ink drawings. These aren't crude doodles. This is a high-tech manual, a private journal of innovation. Inside are diagrams of compound pulleys and water-powered saws. There are schematics for a mechanical eagle with flapping wings, designs for perpetual motion machines, and studies of human anatomy drawn with a clinical eye. There are architectural plans of such precision and complexity they look like blueprints for a starship. This sketchbook is the medieval equivalent of an encrypted hard drive, filled with trade secrets and revolutionary ideas. It's the ultimate set of receipts proving that your age was not one of darkness, but one of dazzling, audacious, and breathtakingly clever light. This discovery, revealed not in one dramatic dig, but pieced together from surviving manuscripts like yours and the careful study of the incredible structures you built, reveals something extraordinary about the medieval mind. As we settle in tonight, we're going to uncover not just what archaeologists and historians have found, but what it tells us about the surprisingly relatable lives of people who lived in 13th century France. Now dim the lights and prepare to discover why this story will change how you think about the Middle Ages. The first thing you notice when you wake is the cold. Not a gentle autumnal chill, but a deep, damp cold that seems to emanate from the very stone of the earth itself. It seeps through your wool blanket, through your linen undertunic, and settles deep in your bones. It is the persistent, unwelcome companion of life in this part of the world. You lie still for a moment on your straw-stuffed mattress, listening. Outside the wooden walls of the mason's lodge, you can hear the faint, rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer, already at work, a metallic heartbeat for the organized chaos that is your life's work. A rooster, utterly unimpressed by the pre-dawn gloom, crows with the kind of confidence you wish you felt. You have a cathedral to build, and gravity, as always, is not on your side. You swing your legs off the cot, the rough-hewn floorboards gritty and cold beneath your bare feet. The lodge is a long, timber-framed building, essentially a glorified dormitory that you share with the other senior craftsmen, the master carpenter, the master glazier, and your most trusted foreman. The air is thick with the smells of sleep, unwashed bodies, wood smoke from last night's fire, and the faint, musty scent of damp wool. Down the length of the hall, other men are stirring, their grunts and coughs echoing in the low-ceilinged space. This is your world, a temporary city of artisans, a travelling circus of genius that follows the great commissions from town to town. You've been here for 7 years already, and the work is maybe, if you're being optimistic, a third of the way done. You are the Magister Operae, the master of the work. The title is both a grand honour and a crushing weight. It means you are the architect, the chief engineer, the site manager, and, on some days, the lead diplomat and hostage negotiator. Every single stone, from the massive foundation blocks to the most delicate carved finial 150 feet in the air, is your responsibility. The bishop who commissioned this monument to God, and not coincidentally, to his own legacy, has entrusted you with a budget that could fund a small war and a workforce of nearly 300 men. If a wall collapses, it is your name that will be cursed. If the vaulting cracks, it is your reputation that will shatter with it. And if by some miracle you succeed in raising this impossible structure, your name will be whispered with awe in guilds across Europe. No pressure then. You pull on your heavy leather boots, lacing them tight. Your clothes are practical, not beautiful. A thick wool tunic over your linen shirt, leggings, and a heavy cloak. This is the uniform of your trade. The only sign of your status is the set of silver calipers you wear on a cord around your neck, and the satchel that never leaves your side. Inside that satchel is your secret weapon, your sketchbook. It's more valuable to you than gold. It contains the accumulated knowledge of your travels, the solutions to problems that have baffled lesser men, the geometric proofs and engineering diagrams that are the true foundation of the cathedral. It's filled with your own thoughts, your frustrations, your sudden flashes of insight. It is, in a very real sense, the cathedral in miniature. Breakfast is a hurried affair, a chunk of dark, dense bread and a mug of weak ale which is safer to drink than the local water. You eat, standing with your foreman, discussing the day's plan. The language you speak is a strange mix of technical jargon, workshop slang, and prayer. You talk of keystones and springers, of lateral thrust and tensile strength. You ask about the new shipment of limestone from the quarry upriver and whether the new batch of mortar is curing properly. You also talk about Bartholomew, a young apprentice who yesterday managed to drop an entire bucket of whitewash on the deacon's favourite robe. Bartholomew, you've decided, has the kind of talent for chaos that could destabilise a small kingdom. Keeping him assigned to non-critical, non-staining and preferably non-gravity-related tasks has become a daily, strategic challenge. A running gag among the foremen is taking bets on what Bartholomew will manage to break, spill or set on fire by noon. As the pale, watery light of dawn begins to filter through the trees, you walk towards the construction site. The cathedral rises from the morning mist like the skeleton of some colossal, fossilized beast. Its stone bones are stark against the grey sky, a web of wooden scaffolding clinging to it like a vine. Even in its unfinished state, it is the most magnificent and terrifying thing you have ever seen. And you are the one who has to make it fly. The sound grows as you get closer, a symphony of industry, the rhythmic chink, chink, chink of dozens of masons' chisels, the grating screech of the great treadwheel cranes hoisting blocks of stone, the shouts of men, the creak of wood, and the steady, percussive beat of hammers on iron. It is the sound of a mountain being reshaped by human will. It's a sound you have come to love more than any choir. You stop at the base of the north wall, tilting your head back until your neck aches. High above, men looking like ants are crawling over the scaffolding, setting stones into place. They are trusting their lives to the ropes, the pulleys, and the timber frames that you designed. They are trusting their lives to your calculations. A gust of wind whips around the corner of the building, carrying with it a fine mist of stone dust that coats your tongue and makes you cough. You look up at the half-finished vaults of the nave, an arching canopy of stone ribs that seem to defy logic, hanging in the air with a terrifying grace. You've done the math 100 times, you've checked the geometry, you know it should work, but every morning you feel a small, cold knot of fear in your stomach, because theory is one thing. 3,000 tons of limestone hanging 40 meters above the ground is another entirely. You take a deep breath, the cold air and stone dust filling your lungs. It's time to get to work. What you don't know yet is that today the cathedral is going to present you with a problem that isn't in any of your books, a puzzle that will threaten the entire project and force you to invent a solution on the fly. Your first stop is the tracing house. This is your sanctuary, your laboratory. It's a vast, well-lit wooden building with a floor of smooth white plaster. This floor is your drawing board. Here, using long, straight edges, giant compasses and charcoal tied to strings, you and your senior draftsman lay out the full-scale designs for the most complex parts of the cathedral. Intricate window tracery, the precise curvature of a vaulting rib, the template for a complex pier. It's all drawn here, one to one. The plaster floor is a chaotic tapestry of overlapping lines, arcs, and geometric shapes, a ghostly image of the stone structure taking shape outside. It's a palimpsest of solved problems. When a design is finalized, the carpenters will use it to create wooden templates, or molds, which the masons then use to cut each stone to its exact, unique shape. This process is the heart of your craft. It's a secret language of geometry passed down from master to apprentice. You don't have calculus, you don't have computer-aided design software. You have Euclid, a piece of charcoal, and a mind that can see the elegant, load-bearing solution hidden within a mess of intersecting circles and squares. To an outsider, the tracing house floor looks like mystical gibberish. To you, it sings a song of pure, unadulterated logic. You spend the first hour of your morning reviewing the layout for the new clear-story windows, the high windows that will flood the nave with light. Your client, the bishop, is obsessed with light. He calls it lux nova, new light, and he believes it is a direct manifestation of the divine. You call it a massive engineering headache. More glass means less stone, and less stone means less structural support. You are in a constant battle, a negotiation between his theological ambitions and the unyielding laws of physics. As you're kneeling on the floor checking the curve of an arch with a plumb line, your chief foreman, a grizzled man named Alban, with hands like stone slabs, enters the tracing house. His face is grim, which is never a good sign. Alban is not a man given to dramatics. If he looks worried, it's because the apocalypse is, at minimum, scheduled for lunchtime. "Master," he says, his voice low, "we have a problem. On the south side." You rise, brushing plaster dust from your knees. "What kind of problem?" "The new vaults we finished last week," he says, gesturing vaguely upwards. "The outer wall, there are hairline cracks appearing in the mortar, and the wall itself, it's bowing, just a little, but it's moving." The knot of fear in your stomach tightens into a cold, hard fist. Bowing, moving. These are not words you ever want to hear associated with a 50-foot-high wall of solid stone. This is how disasters begin. A small shift, a tiny crack, and then suddenly a cascade of catastrophic failure. The weight of the stone vaults, which you so carefully designed to channel downwards into the piers, is instead pushing outwards with immense force. This is lateral thrust, the eternal enemy of the tall building. Your primary support system, the thick buttresses built against the exterior wall, are apparently not enough. You knew this design was pushing the limits of what was possible, but you believed your calculations were sound. Clearly, you missed something. You follow Alban outside, your mind racing. You walk around to the south side of the choir, the section of the cathedral that is nearly complete. From the ground, it's difficult to see anything amiss. The wall looks solid, majestic, but Alban points upwards, and you squint, shielding your eyes from the bright, flat light. He's right. Near the top, where the roof meets the wall, you can just make out a faint, spidery network of fractures in the fresh mortar joints. It's subtle, but it's there. The wall is under a strain it was not designed to bear. It is groaning under the weight of your ambition. Men on the scaffolding nearby have stopped working. They are watching you, their faces anxious. They know the signs. They know what this could mean. Word will spread through the site like a fever. Fear is more corrosive to a project than any winter frost. If your men lose faith in your design, the work will grind to a halt. You have to fix this, and you have to do it quickly and with an absolute air of confidence, even if your insides are churning with dread. You place a hand on the cool stone of the wall as if you could feel it stress through your fingertips. The scale of the problem is immense. You can't just take the wall down and start again. The cost would be ruinous, the delay catastrophic, and the humiliation absolute. You need a new solution, something that can be added to the existing structure to counteract this terrifying outward push. You need a way to prop up the wall from the outside, but it can't be a crude, ugly fix. It has to be elegant, something that looks like it was part of the divine plan all along. You turn to Alban, your face a mask of calm authority you do not feel. "Stop all work on the south vaulting," you command. "Secure the scaffolding, I need to think." You walk away from the looming wall, away from the questioning eyes of your men, and head back towards the quiet solitude of your lodge. You need your satchel, you need your book. The answer isn't in the stones, it's in the lines, it's in the pure, abstract world of geometry, and you have to find it before the real world comes crashing down around you. You can already feel the bishop's angry, accusatory glare on the back of your neck. This is more than a technical problem now. This is a test of your very mastery, and you have a sinking feeling you are about to fail it in the most public and spectacular way imaginable. Back in the relative quiet of your small room in the Mason's Lodge, you unroll the leather satchel and carefully lay out the vellum pages of your sketchbook. The room is sparse, containing only your cot, a small wooden chest for your clothes, and a rickety table where you work. The only decoration is a charcoal sketch of the cathedral's planned facade, tacked to the wall. It is a dream of spires and saints, a vision you are beginning to fear will never be realized. You ignore it. You must focus on the problem, not the potential for failure. Your sketchbook is your refuge. Its pages are a testament to a life spent observing, deconstructing, and understanding the world. You flip past a detailed drawing of a Roman aqueduct you studied on a pilgrimage years ago, its powerful arches a lesson in load distribution. You pass a cross-section of a watermill, its gears and shafts rendered with loving precision. There's a sketch of a spider's web, a marvel of tensile engineering, and a study of a human skeleton, its elegant structure a masterclass in support and articulation. You are not just a builder, you are a student of how things work, from the grandest Roman ruins to the most delicate insect wing. You stop on a page of geometric exercises, circles within squares, triangles nested in dodecahedrons. This is the language you use to talk to stone, the divine grammar of creation. The problem is thrust. The nave vaults, those beautiful curved ceilings of stone, are behaving like a drawn bow. They want to spring outwards, pushing the walls apart. Your existing buttresses, the thick piers of stone built against the aisle walls, are like a hand trying to hold back the string, but they are too low. The force is being exerted at the top of the nave wall, high above the point where your buttresses provide support. It's like trying to stop a man from falling by holding his ankles. Your mind drifts back to other cathedrals you have seen, other solutions you have admired or dismissed. The old Romanesque style, with its thick, heavy walls and tiny windows, solved the problem by simply being too massive to fail. But that was brute force, it was timid. The bishop wants light, height, elegance. He wants to dematerialize the walls, to turn them into shimmering curtains of glass. He wants heaven on earth, and you are the poor soul who has to figure out how to keep it from collapsing. You pick up a piece of charcoal. On a fresh sheet of vellum, you sketch a cross-section of the cathedral as it is now, the high central nave, the lower side aisles, the thick outer wall with its buttresses. You draw arrows, angry little vectors, showing the outward forces from the high vaults. You can see the problem clear as day on the page. The force is shooting out high over the aisle roof, completely bypassing your main support. You need to get up there. You need to catch that thrust in midair and guide it safely down to the ground. An idea begins to form, a ghost of a shape. What if you could build another arch? A separate external arch that could leap from the top of your solid outer buttress, soar over the aisle roof, and connect with the nave wall at the precise point where the pressure is greatest? It would be a bridge for the forces, a conduit of stress, a flying arch, a flying buttress. It is not an entirely new idea. You've seen crude, early versions on other buildings, heavy and awkward things that looked more like structural afterthoughts, like architectural crutches. But you envision something different, something lighter, more graceful. You sketch it out, your charcoal moving quickly across the page, a slender arm of stone reaching up, meeting the wall. You draw another one below it for added stability. You can see how it would work, how it would transform the sideways push into a downward thrust, channeling the immense weight of the roof safely into the foundations. But it's not enough for it to work. It must also be beautiful. It must look intentional, divine. You begin to refine the drawing. You hollow out the solid arch, making it lighter, more skeletal. You add a delicate pinnacle, a small carved spire, on top of the outer pier. It looks lovely, but it's not just for decoration. You realize the extra weight of the pinnacle will add to the vertical force of the buttress, making it even more stable and effective at resisting the outward push. Form and function, piety and physics, all working together in perfect harmony. It's a moment of pure, exhilarating clarity. The kind of insight that feels less like an invention and more like a discovery, as if the solution was there all along, waiting in the geometry for you to find it. You spend another hour refining the sketches, making calculations in the margins. You use simple ratios and the principles of the right-angled triangle, knowledge as old as Pythagoras, to determine the optimal angle and thickness of the arch. You are an artist and a scientist in equal measure. Your laboratory is this small table. Your experiments are these ink and charcoal lines. You draw the system again and again from different angles, imagining how it will look from the ground, how it will catch the light, how it will create a rhythm of solid and void along the length of the building. It will be a forest of stone, an external skeleton that will allow the interior of the cathedral to soar. Finally, you are satisfied. You have it. A solution that is both structurally sound and aesthetically sublime. You have taken a near disaster and turned it into an opportunity for innovation, a chance to create something the world has never seen before. You carefully roll up the vellum sheet, your new blueprint for survival, and tuck it into your satchel. The fear that had gripped you this morning has been replaced by a surge of adrenaline and a fierce, focused determination. Now comes the hard part, convincing the bishop that this radical, expensive new design is not a sign of your incompetence, but a stroke of genius. And then you have to convince your men to build it. You have to persuade them to climb even higher, to trust their lives to an idea that, until an hour ago, existed only as a frantic sketch on a piece of animal skin. You step out of the lodge into the midday sun, blinking. The symphony of the worksite sounds different now. It is no longer just noise, it is the sound of possibility. The social landscape of the worksite is as complex and treacherous as its scaffolding. You are not a king, but you command a small kingdom of stonecutters, mortar mixers, carpenters, glaziers, blacksmiths, and an army of unskilled laborers who do the backbreaking work of hauling and lifting. It is a strict hierarchy, a pyramid of skill. At the bottom are the laborers. Above them are the apprentices, like the infamous Bartholomew, learning their trade. Then come the journeymen, the qualified craftsmen who travel from site to site. And at the top of each craft is the master carpenter, the master blacksmith, and you, the master of them all. Your authority stems from the secrets you hold. The guild protects its knowledge fiercely. The advanced geometry, the structural tricks, the secret formulas for the perfect mortar. These are not written down in public books. They are transmitted from master to apprentice through years of observation and practice. It's a medieval intellectual property agreement, sealed with a handshake and a solemn oath. Your sketchbook is your personal vault of these secrets, the source of your power. To lose it would be to lose everything. Navigating this world requires the skills of a politician. You must manage the rivalries between the different guilds. The carpenters and the masons, for instance, have a long-standing and mostly friendly feud over who is the more essential craftsman. The carpenters argue that without their scaffolding, falsework and cranes, the masons would be just a bunch of men with heavy rocks and nowhere to put them. The masons retort that scaffolding is temporary, but stone is eternal. You often feel like a weary parent refereeing a squabble between two immensely strong and stubborn children. Your most challenging relationship, however, is with your patron, Bishop Thierry. He is a man of God, but his ambitions are very much of this world. He sees this cathedral as his stairway to heaven and, perhaps more importantly, his ticket to a cardinal's hat. He is your client, your boss, and your biggest headache. He has an opinion on everything, from the theological significance of a particular shade of blue glass to the structural integrity of a load-bearing pier, a subject on which he knows dangerously little. You find him in his temporary office near the apse, a room richly decorated with tapestries to keep out the chill. He is examining a ledger with a pinched expression that suggests God is not providing a favorable return on his investment. He looks up as you enter, his eyes sharp and questioning. "Master Mason," he says, his voice smooth, but with an edge of steel. "I have been hearing unsettling rumors, whispers of cracks, of movement. There is no point in dissembling. The work site is a sieve of gossip." "There is a challenge, Your Grace," you say, keeping your tone even and confident. The design is ambitious. The forces at work are considerable. The vaults of the choir are exerting more outward pressure than anticipated. The bishop's eyes narrow. "Are you telling me you have made an error, that my cathedral, my offering to the Almighty, is in danger of collapse?" His voice drips with accusation. "I am telling you that we have encountered a problem which requires an innovative solution," you reply, meeting his gaze. You refuse to be intimidated. He may command the diocese, but you command the physics. You unroll your sketch on his table. "I have spent the morning analyzing the forces. The issue is not error, but evolution. We are building higher and lighter than ever before. Our techniques must evolve as well." You point to the diagram explaining the principle of the flying buttress. You don't use the technical terms of stress and load paths. Instead, you use metaphor. You speak of stone arms reaching up to embrace and support the church. You describe how the design will create a new sense of rhythm and grace, an external skeleton that makes the internal lightness possible. You are not just presenting an engineering solution, you are selling a vision. You are framing a patch as a feature. He listens, his expression unreadable, tracing the lines of your drawing with a manicured finger. He is a shrewd man. He understands power, and he understands appearances. "It is unusual," he says finally. "It is revolutionary, Your Grace," you counter. "It will be a testament not only to God's glory, but to the ingenuity he has granted us. It will become a feature of this cathedral that others will marvel at, and they will rush to copy. It will make this building not just grand, but famous." You see a flicker of vanity, of ambition in his eyes. You have hit the right note. He is less concerned with the structural mechanics than with the potential for prestige. He wants his cathedral to be the biggest, the best, the most talked about in all of France. "And the cost?" he asks, his voice returning to its familiar, sharp tone. "It will require more stone, more labor, you admit. There will be a delay in the completion of the choir, but the alternative is to risk everything. A cautious investment now will protect the greater one already made." He stares at the drawing for a long time. The silence in the room is thick with the unspoken weight of thousands of tons of stone. You can hear the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer, a reminder of the work that has paused, waiting for this decision. "Very well," he says at last, sitting back in his chair. "Proceed. But understand this, Master Mason, if your flying buttresses fail, it will be your reputation that is buried in the rubble." He gives you a thin, dismissive smile. See to it, you have won. You bow, roll up your drawing and exit the room before he can change his mind. You feel a profound sense of relief, but it is short-lived. Now you have to deliver. You have to take the elegant lines on your vellum sheet and translate them into a structure of breathtaking size and complexity. The bishop has given you his permission, but it is your men who will have to risk their lives to build it. You stride back towards the work site, the precious drawing clutched in your hand. You need to gather your foreman. The real work is about to begin. You have to make your theory, your desperate, brilliant idea, into a reality carved in stone. The translation from a two-dimensional drawing to a three-dimensional stone structure is a process of immense complexity, a cascade of craft and coordination. You gather your senior team in the tracing house, Alban, your grizzled site foreman, the master carpenter, and the quarry master. The atmosphere is tense. They have all heard the rumors of the cracking wall. They are looking to you for answers. You lay the new drawing on the plaster floor, weighing it down with small stones. You explain the concept, your voice calm and measured. You talk them through the geometry, the way the new arch will intercept the lateral thrust and channel it down into the foundation. The master carpenter immediately starts asking questions about the scaffolding that will be required. It will need to be taller and more complex than anything they have built before. The quarry master wants to know the exact dimensions of the new stones, the voussoirs for the arches, the blocks for the extended piers. He needs to know now so he can send the orders to the quarrymen. Every stone is cut to a specific template. There is very little room for error. This is where your genius truly lies, not just in the grand vision, but in the practical, step-by-step deconstruction of that vision into 1,000 manageable tasks. You spend the next few hours on the tracing house floor, working with them to draw the new buttress system out at full scale. You use your giant compass, a long wooden arm with a metal point at one end and a holder for charcoal at the other, to swing the perfect arc of the new flying arch. Every measurement is checked and rechecked. A mistake of an inch on the floor could become a catastrophic gap of a foot, 100 feet in the air. Once the master template is laid out in white plaster, the carpenters get to work. They build wooden molds for each unique stone. These molds are then taken to the masons' sheds, where the stone cutters, some of the most skilled artisans on the site, begin their work. You watch them for a while, the air in the sheds thick with stone dust, the sound a deafening chorus of chisels. Each man has his own mark, a small symbol he carves into every stone he finishes. It's a mark of pride, a signature, but it's also a system of quality control. If a stone fails, you will know exactly who cut it. While the stones are being cut, a small army of carpenters and labourers begins erecting the new, taller scaffolding and the complex wooden centering that will support the stone arch of the buttress while it's being built. This centering is a work of art in itself, a precisely curved wooden framework that has to be strong enough to hold tons of stone, yet designed to be easily removed once the arch's keystone is in place and the structure can support itself. The entire success of the project hinges on the skill of the carpenters. Their work is temporary, destined to be torn down, but without it, nothing permanent could be built. Days turn into weeks. The work is slow, dangerous, and painstaking. You are a constant presence on the site, moving from the quarry to the masons' sheds to the dizzying heights of the scaffolding. You check the quality of the mortar, a precise recipe of lime, sand, and water that must be perfect to ensure a strong bond. You inspect the newly cut stones, running your hand over their smooth, precise surfaces. You climb the endless ladders, the wind whipping at your cloak, your heart in your mouth, every time a board creaks beneath your feet. From the top of the scaffolding, the world unfurls below you. You can see the entire town, its narrow streets and timber-framed houses huddled around your colossal project. You can see the river winding its way through the green countryside, the barges bringing your precious stone from the quarries miles away. It is a God's eye view, and it reminds you of the sheer, audacious scale of what you are attempting. There are setbacks, of course. A week of heavy rain turns the entire site into a sea of mud, slowing everything down. A critical hoist rope on one of the great treadwheel cranes snaps, thankfully without injuring anyone, but it takes a full day to replace. And Bartholomew, your designated agent of chaos, manages to trip and knock over a trestle table laden with the carpenter's carefully numbered templates for a window arch, scattering them like playing cards. It takes 2 days of painstaking work on the tracing floor to recreate the sequence. You briefly consider assigning him to a task in a different town, perhaps on a different continent, but you know he means well. His enthusiasm is a force of nature, just a consistently misdirected one. The moment of truth arrives on a clear, cold autumn morning. The first of the new flying buttresses is ready for its keystone. The wooden centering is in place, and the two sides of the slender arch reach for each other across the void. The final wedge-shaped keystone, which will lock the entire structure into compression and make it self-supporting, is being slowly, carefully hoisted into position by the crane. You are up on the scaffolding alongside Alban and a small team of your best masons. The entire worksite has fallen silent below. Everyone is watching. The crane, powered by 6 men walking inside a massive wooden wheel, groans under the strain. The foreman on the ground shouts commands, guiding the stone with hand signals. It sways gently in the wind as it rises, a pendulum marking the terrifyingly slow seconds. You hold your breath. The masons guide the keystone into its final position, at the apex of the arch. It is a tight fit, exactly as you designed. One of the men uses a wooden mallet, tapping it gently into place. The sound of the wood on the stone echoes in the silence. For a moment, nothing happens. The arch is still resting on its wooden support. The next step is the most dangerous. You have to remove the centering. This is the moment the structure either stands on its own, a triumph of engineering, or collapses in a deadly shower of stone and splintered wood. "All right," you say, your voice steadier than you feel. Strike the wedges, gently. 2 carpenters below begin to knock out the small wooden wedges that support the centering framework. With each blow of their mallets, the wooden structure settles slightly, transferring its load to the stone arch above. There is a series of groans and creaks as the full, immense weight of the arch settles onto itself for the first time. You watch the mortar joints, looking for any sign of movement, any new crack. Nothing. The arch holds. It stands, slender and strong, soaring through the air, just as you had imagined it in your little room. A collective sigh of relief, followed by a ragged cheer, erupts from the ground below. Alban claps you on the shoulder, his weathered face breaking into a rare, wide grin. You look at the elegant curve of stone, this bridge of pure physics, and you feel a sense of pride so profound it almost brings you to your knees. You did not just solve a problem. You have created a new form, a new language for architecture. You have taken the bishop's demand for light and your own fear of failure and forged them into something beautiful and strong. You have made stone fly. As you look out from your perch, you can see the next bay and the next, waiting for their own stone wings. The work is far from over. Winter is coming with its freezing rains and dangerous ice, but today you have won. You have wrestled with the laws of nature, and, for a brief, glorious moment, you have bent them to your will. As our journey through the mind of a medieval master mason concludes tonight, we're reminded that the past is far from dusty and dull. It's a vibrant, often surprising, and always intriguing tapestry woven with human ingenuity, resilience, and the occasional ancient mystery that still makes us wonder. The great cathedrals are not just monuments to faith, they are monuments to a scientific and engineering prowess that we have, for too long, underestimated. They are the undeniable, sky-high proof that the light of human curiosity and cleverness never went out. It was just learning to build taller, more beautiful windows to shine through. This is the sleeping archaeologist encouraging you to remain curious about the incredible tales still waiting to be discovered beneath our feet. The medieval peasant who lived better than you think. A historical deep dive. When you picture a medieval peasant, what comes to mind? Probably a scene straight out of a low-budget historical epic, directed by someone whose primary source was a Monty Python sketch. You're imagining a man named something like Grog, covered head to toe in mud, living in a hovel that's more of a structural suggestion than an actual building. His daily routine consists of waking up, groaning, hitting a rock with another rock for 12 hours, eating a bowl of indeterminate brown sludge, and then dying of the plague at the ripe old age of 27. We see them as simple, miserable, and frankly a bit dim, living lives that were, in the famous words of Thomas Hobbes, nasty, brutish, and short. This image is one of history's most successful and enduring pieces of propaganda. It was crafted by the tiny fraction of the population who could read and write, the monks, nobles, and chroniclers, who had a vested interest in portraying the common folk as a wretched, unthinking mass in need of their guidance and control. It was a narrative that justified a deeply unequal social structure, a story that said, "Look at these poor souls, they couldn't possibly manage without us." It's a caricature, a cartoon drawn by the 1% of their day to make themselves feel important, and for centuries we've pretty much bought it wholesale. It's comforting in a strange way to think of the past as just a miserable prelude to our glorious air-conditioned present. That old way of thinking was completely wrong. Tonight, you are that peasant, but you are not Grog, and your life is not a Monty Python skit. The year is 1347, and the air in the Yorkshire wolds is crisp and clean. You are standing in the middle of a bustling, organised village called Warham Percy. And while your life is undeniably hard, it is also complex, structured, and filled with a kind of sturdy dignity the history books never bothered to record. You are a farmer, a father, a husband, a voter in your village council. And you are, by the standards of your time, far from the bottom of the pile. You own things, you have rights, and most importantly, you have a name, and it isn't Grog. The proof of your existence, the receipts that call out the lies of the chroniclers, are not found in a dusty book. They are found in the earth itself. Archaeologists at the site of Warham Percy, one of the most famous deserted medieval villages in the world, have spent decades uncovering your life. They've found the ghostly outlines of your house, not a mud hut, but a sturdy longhouse with stone foundations, big enough for your family and your most valuable animals. They've found your pottery, your tools, and the bones of your neighbours in the churchyard. These skeletons are the ultimate historical fact-checkers. Their very chemistry tells us they ate a varied diet of grains, vegetables, and even a surprising amount of fish. Their bones show the toll of hard labour, yes, but they also show healed fractures, evidence of a community that cared for its injured, that didn't just leave the weak to die. These finds are so complete, so unambiguous, that they forced a total re-evaluation of what it meant to be an ordinary person in the Middle Ages. This discovery, made over decades of careful excavation in North Yorkshire, reveals something extraordinary about the resilience and complexity of medieval rural life. As we settle in tonight, we're going to uncover not just what archaeologists found, but what it tells us about the surprisingly relatable lives of people who lived in a world without clocks, without plastic, but with the same fundamental human needs and anxieties as our own. Now dim the lights and prepare to discover why this story will change how you think about the so-called Dark Ages. The first thing you notice when you wake up is the cold. Not a biting, aggressive cold, but a persistent, seeping chill that seems to emanate from the very soil beneath you. It's early spring, and the sun hasn't yet gathered the strength to burn off the damp Yorkshire mist that clings to the valley. You're lying on a straw-stuffed mattress covered by a thick, scratchy wool blanket that smells faintly of lanolin and wood smoke. It's a familiar, comforting scent. The second thing you notice is the sound. Your two young children are still breathing softly in their own small bed on the other side of the room, but the gentle grunting and shuffling on the far side of the wooden partition tells you that Daisy, your prized milk cow, is awake. Living with your most valuable livestock under the same roof isn't a sign of squalor. It's a brilliant, low-tech security system and a wonderfully effective space heater. You swing your legs out of bed, your bare feet hitting the packed earth floor. It's cold, yes, but firm and swept clean. You are not living in a mud pit. Your home, which archaeologists a few centuries from now will call a cruck frame longhouse, is a testament to generations of practical engineering. Two massive curved timbers, the crucks, form the central A-frame of the building, creating a surprisingly spacious and stable interior. The walls are wattle and daub, a lattice of woven hazel branches plastered with a mixture of clay, straw, and cow dung. It sounds primitive, but it's an incredibly effective insulator, far better than the drafty stone castles the lords freeze in. You run a hand over the wall, it's rough and uneven, but it's solid, it's yours. Well, not yours in the sense that you could sell it on the open market. It belongs to the lord of the manor, like everything else around here. But it is your home by custom, and your family has lived on this small plot, this toft, for as long as anyone can remember. In the center of the main room, the embers of last night's fire are still glowing in the hearth. There's no chimney, of course. That's a luxury for the impossibly wealthy. The smoke simply finds its own way out through a hole in the thatched roof. It means the rafters above you are permanently blackened, and the whole house carries that smoky perfume. But it also means the roof space is a perfect, insect-free place to hang and cure meat. Every design feature of your life is a compromise, a balance of comfort, cost, and practicality. You add a few logs to the fire, coaxing it back to life. The growing light from the flames pushes back the shadows, revealing the simple realities of your home. A large wooden chest holds your family's few sets of clothes and valuables, a small pewter brooch your wife inherited, a set of iron tools you guard with your life. A rough-hewn table and a couple of benches are the only furniture. It's not much, but it's enough. Your wife is already up, moving with the quiet efficiency of long practice. She's grinding wheat for the morning's bread on a small stone quern, a task that requires a strength and stamina you've always admired. The rhythmic, scraping sound of stone on stone is the true alarm clock of your world. You pull on your clothes, simple linen undergarments, a pair of thick wool trousers called brays, and a long tunic, also of wool. The fabric is coarse, spun and woven by your wife during the long winter evenings, but it is incredibly durable and warm, even when damp. You pull on a pair of soft leather turn shoes, another product of your own small world, made by the village cobbler in exchange for a portion of your grain. Your entire existence is a web of these small personal transactions. Money exists, certainly, but barter, favors, and communal obligation are the real currency of your life. Outside, the village of Warham Percy is slowly coming to life. You step out your door and take a deep breath. The air is a complex cocktail of smells. Damp earth, wood smoke from your neighbours' hearths, the sharp tang of the manure pile at the edge of your property, and the clean green scent of the surrounding hills. Your house is one of about 30 or 40 clustered along a single, wide trackway. Each house sits on its own long, narrow plot of land, a croft, with a small vegetable garden and space for a few chickens or a pig. It's an orderly, planned settlement, not a random jumble of huts. You can see the stone walls of the church, St. Martin's, at the centre of the village, its small bell tower, just visible through the mist. To the west, on a slightly higher piece of ground, sits the manor house, a more substantial stone building where the Lord's Reeve lives. You try not to look at it too often. It's a constant physical reminder of the man who holds ultimate power over your life, the man who takes a share of everything you produce. You and your neighbours are not free men, not entirely. You are villains, a term that will one day become the word villain. But for you it simply means you are tied to the land. You cannot leave the manor without the Lord's permission. You owe him a certain number of days of labour each week, working his personal fields, the domain. You have to pay him a portion of your crops, a fine when your daughter marries, another when your son inherits your tenancy. It's a system designed to extract as much wealth from your labour as possible. And yet it is not slavery. The system runs on custom, on rules that have been in place for centuries. You have rights enshrined in the manorial court. The Lord cannot simply kick you off your land. He cannot demand more work than is customary. If he does, you and your fellow villagers can and will appeal. You are not powerless, you are just unfree. It's a subtle but crucial distinction that the written histories, so focused on the grand sweep of kings and battles, often miss entirely. But those are thoughts for another time. Right now, the sun is beginning to break through the clouds, and there is work to be done. You grab a hunk of the coarse, dark bread your wife has baked. It's dense and heavy, but it fills your stomach, and a piece of hard cheese. This is your breakfast, eaten on the move. Your main meal will be in the evening. You call out to your neighbour John, who is emerging from his own longhouse. He grunts a greeting, his face already set in the grim, determined expression of a man who knows he has a long day of back-breaking labour ahead. Together you head not to your own land, but to the great open fields that surround the village. Today is a boon day, a day of required labour on the Lord's domain, and the Reeve will be watching. You can already feel the familiar ache starting in your lower back. The fields of Warham Percy are a masterpiece of communal organisation that would give a modern efficiency expert a nervous breakdown. There are no neat, square, fenced-in properties here. Instead, two vast open fields stretch out from the village, each divided into hundreds of long, narrow strips of land called celians. Each family, including yours, is allocated a number of these strips, but they're scattered all across the field, mixed in with everyone else's. Your strip might be next to John's, but your next one could be a quarter of a mile away, sandwiched between land work by Thomas and a strip belonging to the church. This is the open field system, and it's designed for fairness, or at least a medieval version of it. By scattering the strips, it ensures that everyone gets a share of the good land and the bad, the well-drained soil and the boggy patches. It prevents one family from hoarding all the best acreage. The downside is that it's a logistical nightmare. Every major decision, when to plough, when to plant, when to harvest, has to be made collectively. You can't just decide to plant oats while everyone else is planting barley. Your unfenced strips are vulnerable to your neighbour's stray sheep. The whole system depends on a level of cooperation and trust that is frankly astounding. and it is all managed by the village itself through the manorial court, where you and every other head of a household have a say. It's a form of local democracy centuries before the concept would be formally invented. It's messy, it's inefficient, but it works most of the time. Today, however, you're not working your own strips, you're working the Lord's. You and a team of 6 other men are guiding the heavy-wheeled plough, the village's most important piece of shared technology. It's pulled by a team of 8 oxen, massive, slow-moving beasts that respond to a series of clicks and calls. Your job is to help guide the ploughshare, keeping the furrows straight and deep. The damp earth is heavy and it fights you every step of the way. It's grueling, repetitive work that engages every muscle in your body. The only sounds are the creak of the leather harnesses, the grunts of the oxen, the rhythmic slice of the iron ploughshare through the soil, and the occasional shouted instruction. There's a certain zen-like quality to it. You don't have to think, you just have to push. Your mind is free to wander. You think about the upcoming planting season. You pray for the right amount of rain, not too much, not too little. A bad harvest doesn't just mean a lean winter, it can mean starvation. The margin for error in your world is terrifyingly thin. You think about the wool tax and the fact that the king, some distant abstract figure in London, is fighting another pointless war in France and expecting you and your sheep to pay for it. You think about your daughter's cough and you say a silent prayer to St. Giles, the patron saint of cripples and the sick. Your faith is not an abstract theological concept, it's a practical part of your daily toolkit for survival. It's a tapestry of prayers, saints and rituals that provides comfort, explanation, and a sense of control in a world that is fundamentally unpredictable and often hostile. The reeve, a man named William, rides by on his horse. He's the Lord's man, a villager elevated to a position of authority, which makes him both respected and deeply resented. His job is to make sure you all do your work, and he has a knack for showing up just as you're pausing to stretch your aching back. He doesn't say anything, just gives a slight, knowing nod. The message is clear, get back to it. You hate him, but you also understand him. He's just doing his job. In a way, his position is more precarious than yours. If the harvest is bad, the Lord will blame him. You just have to survive. He has to explain. This intricate social dynamic, the subtle dance of power, resentment, and mutual dependence, is the invisible architecture of your village. Archaeologists can dig up the foundations of your houses, but they can't excavate these complex human relationships. They can only infer them from the layout of the village, the distribution of wealth, and the silent testimony of your bones. And what your bones will one day say is that you worked hard, very hard. They will show the telltale signs of osteoarthritis, the wear and tear of a lifetime spent turning the heavy soil of Yorkshire. By midday, the sun is high and you break for a short meal. Your wife brings it out to the fields, more bread, a flask of weak, watery ale known as small beer, and perhaps a bit of pottage left over from last night. Pottage is the cornerstone of your diet, a thick stew of grains, peas, and whatever vegetables are available from your garden. Onions, leeks, cabbage. It sounds bland, and it is, but it's nutritious and filling. The idea that you live on nothing but gruel is a myth. Skeletal analysis from Warren Percy and other sites shows remarkably little evidence of severe malnutrition. Your diet is monotonous, yes, but it's generally adequate. You have access to protein from eggs, cheese, and the occasional chicken. The river provides fish. You are not starving. You are simply living within the tight constraints of what the land around you can provide. The afternoon is a mirror of the morning. More ploughing, more aching muscles, more of the slow rhythmic turning of the earth. As you work, you notice the small details of your landscape, the ridge and furrow patterns left by centuries of this same ploughing, still visible in the fields today. the boundary stones that mark the edge of the Lord's land, the way the village is nestled in a valley, protected from the worst of the wind. You know this land with an intimacy a modern person could never comprehend. You know which parts of the field drain well, where the soil is thin, where the rabbits are most likely to burrow. This knowledge is your inheritance, passed down through generations, far more valuable than any amount of gold. It's what keeps you and your family alive. Finally, as the sun begins to dip towards the horizon, the reeve calls an end to the day's labor. The relief is immense. You unhitch the oxen and lead them back to the communal pasture. Your workday isn't over, not yet. You still have your own animals to tend to, your garden to weed, and tools to mend. The work of a farmer is never truly done. But the compulsory labor, the work for him, is finished for the day. As you walk back to the village, you pass the blacksmith's forge. The ring of his hammer on the anvil is a constant, reassuring sound. He is one of the few specialists in the village, a man whose skills are essential to everyone. You see the miller by the stream, another man whose position gives him a certain power. He grinds your grain into flour, and he takes a portion for himself as payment. Millers are universally suspected of taking more than their fair share, a running joke and a source of genuine grievance that has persisted for centuries. Back at your house, the smell of pottage cooking over the fire is the most welcoming scent in the world. Your children run to greet you, their faces smudged with dirt, but their eyes bright. You spend some time with them, checking on your small flock of chickens, ensuring the gate to the croft is secure against foxes. The evening meal is the main social event of the day. The whole family gathers around the table. You eat with your hands and a simple wooden spoon, sharing from a common bowl. Tonight's pottage has a bit of bacon in it for flavor, a rare treat. As you eat, you talk. You share the day's news, the village gossip, who is sick, whose cow has just calved, the reeve's latest petty tyranny. This is how your culture is transmitted, not through books, but through stories, proverbs, and shared experiences around the hearth. After the meal, as darkness falls, there is little to do. Candles made of tallow are expensive and smell awful, so they are used sparingly. Most evenings are spent in the flickering firelight. You might repair a tool, your wife might spin wool, and you might tell your children stories, not fairy tales of princes and dragons, but local legends, tales of the saints and cautionary fables about the dangers of straying too far from the village. Your world is small, but it is deep. Your entire life is lived within a few square miles. You know everyone in the village and they know you. You know their parents and their grandparents. This is a level of community that has been almost entirely lost to the modern world. It's comforting, but it can also be stifling. There are no secrets in War and Percy. Every dispute, every indiscretion is public knowledge. On some nights you might go to the ale house. It's not a formal pub, just a designated house where a neighbour, usually a woman known as an alewife, is brewing a batch of ale. Ale is a fundamental part of your world. It's a source of calories, it's safer to drink than the often contaminated water, and it's a social lubricant. Sitting on a bench, sipping a wooden cup of thick, unfiltered ale, you and your neighbours complain about the reeve, speculate about the weather, and argue about whose oxen are the strongest. It's here that the real politics of the village happens. Alliances are formed, disputes are mediated, and a sense of collective identity is forged. It is your parliament, your newsroom, and your therapy session all rolled into one. But the true centre of your social and spiritual life is the church. St. Martin's is the only stone building you enter regularly. Its cool, dark interior smells of incense, damp stone, and centuries of prayer. You are not a theologian. Your understanding of Christianity is a blend of official church doctrine, folk traditions, and what you can glean from the paintings on the church walls, the so-called Bible of the poor. You see the vivid depictions of heaven and hell, the stories of the saints, the final judgment. It is a powerful visual reminder of the cosmic drama in which you are a bit player. The priest, a man who is likely as uneducated as you are, mumbles his way through the Latin Mass. You don't understand the words, but the ritual is deeply familiar and comforting. It marks the passage of time from the celebration of Easter to the lean days of Lent. The church is more than just a place of worship. Its bell tolls the hours, structuring your day. The churchyard is where your ancestors are buried, a physical link to your past. The church porch is where business is transacted, oaths are sworn, and public announcements are made. The manorial court is often held within its walls. This is where you see the law in action. It's not the king's law of high justice, but the local, customary law of the manor. Here you can bring a grievance against a neighbour who let his pigs wander into your garden. You can be fined for failing to show up for your labour duties, and you can serve as a juror, helping to decide the outcome of these cases. You have a voice. You are a participant in the running of your own community. This is a crucial piece of your identity, a piece almost entirely erased by the historical caricature of the mindless serf. You are not a cog in a machine. You are part of a complex, self-regulating organism. Life continues in this rhythm dictated by the seasons. The intense labor of planting in the spring gives way to the endless, mind-numbing task of weeding in the summer. Then comes the frantic, exhausting work of the harvest in the autumn, where every able-bodied person in the village works from sunrise to sunset to bring in the crops before the weather turns. Winter is a time of rest and repair, of huddling by the fire and hoping the food stores last. It's a hard, precarious existence. Disease is a constant threat. A simple infection from a small cut can be a death sentence. Childbirth is perilous for both mother and child. Archaeologists find the evidence of this harsh reality in your cemetery. The high number of infant and child graves tells a story of profound and frequent grief. Life is fragile. You know this in your bones. But then, one year, something changes. It starts as a rumor, a story brought by a traveling merchant or a pilgrim on his way to a distant shrine, a story of a terrible pestilence in the south, a sickness that strikes without warning and kills within days. You don't pay it much mind at first. The world outside your valley is a place of myths and monsters. It has little to do with you, but the rumors persist, growing more detailed and more frightening. They say whole towns are being wiped out. They say the plague has reached London. They describe the terrifying symptoms, the fever, the delirium, the black swellings, the buboes that give the disease its name. Fear, a cold and unfamiliar kind of fear, begins to creep into the village. It's a fear of the unknown, an enemy you cannot see and cannot fight. The year is 1348, and then it arrives, no one knows how. Perhaps a flea on a rat in a trader's cart, perhaps a sick traveller seeking shelter. It doesn't matter. One day, a woman in a neighbouring village falls ill. A week later, she is dead, along with her entire family. Then it's in your village. Thomas, the man whose field strip lies next to yours, is the first to go. You see the priest visit his house. You hear the wailing of his wife, and then you see his body, wrapped in a simple shroud, being carried to the churchyard for a hasty burial. The priest says it is God's punishment for the sins of mankind. He calls for prayer and fasting, but the prayers do nothing. The sickness spreads like a fire in a dry field. The familiar, ordered world of Warren Percy collapses. The communal bonds that held your society together begin to fray. People become suspicious of their neighbours. They bar their doors. The fields lie untended. The sound of the blacksmith's hammer falls silent. The only constant sound is the tolling of the church bell, announcing another death until there are too many deaths to announce. You and your family hide in your house, praying to every saint you can name. You listen to the sounds from outside, the carts rumbling through the village to collect the dead, the muffled sounds of grief from a dozen homes. You don't know who will be next. Every cough, every headache brings a fresh wave of terror. Archaeologists can see this moment in the ground. In the churchyard at Warren Percy, they found burial pits from this exact time, mass graves where bodies were laid without the usual care and ceremony, a testament to a community overwhelmed by death. The sheer number of dead in such a short time was too much for the old rituals. Survival became the only priority. You watch as your friends and neighbors are consumed by the plague. John, the man you ploughed the fields with, is gone. The reeve, William, for all his authority, succumbs to the fever. The priest dies too, leaving the village without spiritual guidance at the moment it is needed most. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it recedes. The wave of death passes, leaving behind a shattered, half-empty village. You and your family have survived. You don't know why. Was it luck? Divine favor? A stronger constitution? You will never know. But as you emerge from your home into the strangely quiet village, you realize that the world has been fundamentally, irrevocably changed. Nearly half of your neighbors are gone. There are empty houses, their hearths cold. There are untended fields, already becoming overgrown with weeds. The silence is the most unsettling thing. The familiar hum of village life has been replaced by an eerie quiet. But in the wake of this unimaginable tragedy, something strange begins to happen. You and the other survivors are no longer just cogs in the old machine. You are now a scarce and valuable resource. The lord of the manor, whose wealth is based entirely on the labor of his tenants, is desperate. He needs people to work his fields, to tend his flocks. There are not enough hands to do the work. And for the first time in your life, you have leverage. The old customs, the old obligations are broken. You can demand better terms. You can demand wages for your labor in cash. You can refuse to work unless your rent is lowered. The Lord's new reeve threatens and cajoles, but the threats are empty. If you leave, there is no one to replace you. Other lords in other manors are desperate for tenants and are willing to offer better conditions. The rigid social pyramid has been cracked right down the middle. This is the great turning point that the Black Death brought to your world. It was a demographic catastrophe, but it was also the beginning of the end for the old system of serfdom. In the decades that follow, you see the changes firsthand. You are able to rent more land, better land. You accumulate a small amount of savings. Your children will not be bound to the soil in the same way you were. They will have choices you never dreamed of. The power dynamic between lord and peasant has shifted, and it will never shift back. The world has been remade, born out of the ashes of the plague. The village of Warren Percy, however, never fully recovers. The population is smaller, the fields are less productive. Over the next century and a half, its fortunes continue to decline. The focus of the English economy shifts from agriculture to sheep farming for the lucrative wool trade. Lords find it more profitable to enclose the old open fields and turn them into vast sheep pastures than to collect rents from a dwindling number of tenants. One day, in the late 15th or early 16th century, the lord of the manor at Warren Percy decides to do just that. The remaining handful of families, the descendants of the plague survivors, are evicted. Their homes are torn down, their church abandoned. The land where you once lived, worked, and died is given over to sheep. And then silence. For 500 years, Warren Percy is nothing but a collection of strange lumps and bumps in a remote Yorkshire field, its story forgotten, its name known only to a few local antiquarians. Your life, your struggles, your small victories, all erased from memory. The written histories continue to talk of kings and queens, of battles and dynasties, but you, and the millions like you, who formed the backbone of the medieval world, are rendered invisible. You become the mud-covered caricature, the simple-minded grog, until the archaeologists arrive. With their trowels and their toothbrushes, their ground-penetrating radar, and their isotopic analysis, they begin to piece your world back together. They trace the foundations of your house, revealing its size and structure. They map the village, showing its organized layout. They excavate the church, finding the ghosts of the people who worshipped there. And in the bones of your neighbors, they read the true story of your lives. A story of hard work, yes, a story of hardship and disease, certainly, but also a story of a complex community, of a surprisingly decent diet, of resilience in the face of unimaginable disaster, and of a social structure far more nuanced than the history books ever allowed. They gave you your name back. They proved you were not a footnote, but the story itself. The earth remembered what the books forgot. As our journey through Warren Percy concludes tonight, we're reminded that the past is far from dusty and dull. It's a vibrant, often surprising, and always intriguing tapestry woven with human ingenuity, resilience, and the occasional ancient mystery that still makes us wonder. This is the Sleeping Archaeologist, encouraging you to remain curious about the incredible tales still waiting to be discovered beneath our feet.